In the beginning of this week's parasha, the Torah tells us that the Shemen Zayizach, the purest of olive oils, is brought to the Mishkan, L'ha'alos Ner Tamid, to light the menorah with an eternal light, a constant light. But the truth is, the menorah was not always on. It's not like it was a light switch and it was on and it never went out. It's not like the Ner Tamid we might find in the front of our shul that always seems to be on, ever glowing. The menorah at times would go on and at times would go out and then would be reignited the next day. The menorah represents in many ways our avodas Hashem that at times can feel disconnected, at times it can feel extinguished. We were to be on a high yesterday and today we were on a low. Even minute by minute we could feel like connected right now and then we feel disconnected again. The menorah teaches us that it is not about the ner being on all the time. It's about lahalos being on all the time. In other words, it's not like the shulchan, where the lechem apanim had to always be on the shulchan. Last week's parasha it says it needs to be lefanai tamid. It's always the same word, be on the shulchan. The Gemara in Menachos tells us that there were two groups of kohanim, one group to replace and one group to remove the lechem apanim, to make sure there was no gap in between. As one was taking out, the other one was putting on the next lechem apanim. There, the Talmud refers to the constant presence of the lechem apanim on the shulchan. But when it came to the menorah, no one expected that the menorah was going to be lit at all times. What was expected? What was the eternal Talmud, the consistency that was necessary? It's lahalos. It's to make sure that we are constantly going back to reignite the flame that might have gone out. Again, in our lives, we might feel like there are disconnections, that that flame of inspiration has been extinguished or is dwindling. Our avoda is not to feel necessarily like we've let HaKadosh Baruch Hu down in that moment, because our avoda is like the menorah, to make sure that we are reigniting that flame. Our avoda at that time is not to worry about the flame that's gone out, but making sure that we are putting a new flame in its place. That we are reigniting constantly, even if we feel like we have fallen. We're connecting back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the avoda of the shulchan is that even in the smallest actions in our lives, when we're eating the bread, when we're sleeping, when we're exercising, those too can be part of a constant approach to avodas Hashem. They too can be part of our way of serving God. And that can be constant in a different fashion. If we are constantly aware of God's presence in our lives, even if we're not on fire, even if we're not inspired, that's the avoda of the shulchan. And the avoda of the menorah is not to get down on ourselves when we feel like the flame has gone out, but to rather make sure that we are lahalos ourselves, to reignite ourselves, just like the menorah needs to be reignited. Tamid. The reignition needs to be consistent, not the flame. We hope and dream and daven that our flame should last longer, that the flame of connection to the Baruch Hu should be brighter and warmer in our souls. But we are acknowledging that as human beings, there are times when that flame goes out. And instead of getting down about that, we recognize that the avoda of the Mishkan, the avoda of the menorah specifically, is to reignite that flame consistently. That it's the ignition, the reignition, the searching for more, the rekindling of a flame. That needs to be consistent, even if the flame has gone out.